Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And we start the episode with a little bit of sad news. I don't know if you've even heard this news, Joy. We are recording this on November the 30th, and we got the sad news today that Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac passed away at the age of 79.
I absolutely have. This one made me tear up a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I'm not someone who gets emotional very easily at all. But in this case, this one made me sad because Don't Stop is the one that I know even though she's a keyboardist and she's a vocalist, but she wrote Don't Stop. That's the one one of the ones she's pinned as writing completely by herself. And there may be one other additional co-writer, but generally it's known that she wrote that song. The Chain is probably my other favorite Fleetwood Mac song. And all five of them are pinned as, writing on it. But Don't Stop is one of my personal kind of like anthems. It's one of my go-to songs. It's the one that makes me feel happy and all the good things. So this one kind of made me sad because I absolutely adore that song.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking up the songs that she was sort of as the primary songwriter or the sole songwriter. I mean, you have You Make Loving Fun Everywhere, and like you say, famously, Don't Stop. It makes you wonder about Fleetwood Mac because Fleetwood Mac is John McVie and Mick Fleetwood, and the two singers. But I mean, they've moved around, and she left the band for a while and stuff like that. But I think up to recently, she has been back in the band.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, she has been. I know, they're one of those not unless blank freezes over kind of bands. Will we play again? We've joked about them many times. But as far as I'm aware, they are. She's been playing with them. My mom was watching something on, I don't know, I was at a birthday party or something at their house, and she was watching a live concert with them, and she was there. And it just, I mean, she's probably in her 70s by now, right? I would think.
She was 79.
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't make it any easier. And I hate when people are like, well, they lived a good life. But it's just, yeah, this one really hurt. I actually had tears in my eyes when I heard this one.
Yeah, incredibly sad news. And as we may have said before on this podcast, I see a lot of symmetry between ABBA and Fleetwood Mac with regards to their inner workings and the fact they've married to each other and divorced to each other. But, Fleetwood Mac probably had more cocaine involved.
So one thing about Fleetwood Mac, though, and I saw one of our listeners, Phil, and a few other people discussing this on Facebook, and they were saying that Fleetwood Mac, and I would say ABBA too, is one of those bands that colored our childhood or colors your life because you hear them in commercials, you hear them in the car radio. They're your go-to when you want to be happy. They're one of those bands that everybody has like some distinct memory, even if it's just sitting in the backseat of your car when your parents are driving down the road, and the Rumors album is playing or whatever. And I thought that was a great way to say it because they're so relate, like they did so many different songs that had so many different things that they paint a picture of your life in a way. So I think that's also for me why I was actually tearing up when I read the news.
Yeah, and the other thing about Fleetwood Mac is they've gone through so many different changes in their sound. They started out as a blues band and then like a rhythm and blues band, and then sort of in the 70s they took more of a pop sort of type of thing, and then you can't really define Fleetwood Mac's music because it's almost like Queen in a lot of ways. Like depending on what era you like, it's the kind of sort of genre of music it is.
Yeah, and that's exactly what actually a lot of the artists we talk about, I think that are what I would say the biggest musical acts of time. That's what they do. Like we talked about, Queen does it, ABBA did it. I would say Michael Jackson had different times where he had different things. I'd say Prince did it. That's what I think makes them different is the fact that, yes, they have their kind of, their own sound, but they can do everything. And just like, it's like they're from album to album, you're getting a different version of Fleetwood Mac that's so good and so rich. Sure,
absolutely. Well, it's terrible, sad news. I don't know where it leaves Fleetwood Mac, but more importantly, it's a very sad time for the fans and a super sad time for her family. So, as we like to say, rock in peace, Christine McVie.
All right. Well, and with that, I guess I'm going to move into our little new segment. So I decided, and this was just kind of a play off of Tim's album of the week. You know, we've done a few different things like that. I was going to do a local band of the week. And I know not everybody is local to me and Tim. I get that. But we do have a lot of people who play in bands, a lot of musicians who listen to us. I wanted to highlight some of my favorite local bands. Tim's heard me talk about this band probably 5 times before. I think I've even sent him the YouTube videos of them before because I love them. Mm-hmm. This band is called The Fritz. I've heard them play probably 4 or 5 times now. I bought their albums. I have the same YouTube playlist. I've sent Tim 3 times now, I think, of their music because it's my favorite. I think it shows their picture very well, but they're kind of like a psychedelic funk band. I don't want to say like George Clinton, but you get those kind of vibes mixed with the rock thing. And what's cool, and maybe Tim can talk about this because he's been in some local bands about them, is if you go to one of their shows, they never stop playing until it's like intermission. So like they have like a change up where one song leads right into the next. And it's just a constant fume of like, and the lead singer doesn't talk very much. He may say a few words here and there, but it's just steady music right in your face where there's just like one song and then there's a break. Like, I don't want to say break, like kind of like some type of breakdown between the musicians where that changes over into the new song. Break's not the right word, but whatever you want to call it. Interlude, I guess.
Probably more interlude, I would say.
Yeah. And so it's a really fun concert because it's just constant music. And it's so cool because it's so funky sounding. And the way they can do that, you still know they're going into a new song. I absolutely adore them. If you look them up, they're from Asheville, North Carolina. They're called The Fritz. It's Fritz. I think they changed lead singers recently, but I've listened to the new person and they're wonderful. And I don't know what the reasoning behind that was. Life happens, right?
Exactly.
Have you ever played in a band that's done that, or do you know bands that do that, Tim, where there's no breaks between the songs?
Well, to be honest with you, a lot of bands I've been in, one of the big contentious issues in practice is trying to eliminate the breaks between songs because there's often too much faffing about. But I mean, if you can do that, I mean, if you can morph one song into another, it's certainly when you're trying to keep things going and keep the audience entertained and engaged and keep people dancing. You have played like just an entire one set of music with like just different ups and downs where the songs start and begin. Yeah. I mean, that's a good goal to have. But I mean, equally, sometimes you do want to stop between songs because you might want your singer or other person in the band to engage with the crowd a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, they do that, like I said, a little bit, but it's just interesting. I've never seen a band do it as well as them, I guess is what I mean. With that is my little local band of the week. We'll do a few of these and just kind of change it up. Might even have Tim tell us a little bit about his own band at some point, pat his own shoulder on his back. Yeah, because any other shoulder would be on your back. Why would I say your own shoulder on your back? No, he's got Jim's shoulder on his back. What kind of statement was that? Okay, and with that, there's my segment. Bye.
Thank you for the segment. There we are. Yeah, maybe I will do a segment on Flagger Hill. I don't know. We will. I'll get a press release from the boys. There we are.
Make sure you get somebody else's shoulder for you to pat while you're at it there, Tim.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I have this week's episode, and because we had a little bit of a rabbit hole last week, I would say, with the Reynolds sisters and Pepsi and what was that other woman's, Shirley?
It was, Pepsi and Shirley and the Reynolds girls. Now, I went on a bit of a deep dive on the Reynolds girls, and they have completely disappeared off the face of the earth. They do not have a social media presence, and they left the pop music world and no one's ever heard of them since. And there was even supposed to be some big reunion concert that Pete Waterman did, and they could not be found.
So I thought it'd be funny. I think me and Tim should have a running bit where we're constantly looking up and seeing if we can find them at some point. Like we do an update every 3 weeks or something. We're like, so update. They've still not been found. But anyway, so with that being said, what actually started the topic for this week was Pepsi and Shirley because they were in Last Christmas. They were in the music video. So this episode is like the best, weirdest, wackiest stories behind Christmas songs.
Okay.
As Tim already alluded to, today is November 30th. So we're within, and we actually talked about this with one of our listeners. In America, generally, Christmas season starts once Thanksgiving is over. That's kind of our rule of thumb. I don't know how else it works for everybody. So for us, we are in Christmas season. You guys will see this probably close to Christmas or right after Christmas. Hear it, you won't see it. But anyway, so I just thought it'd be fun to talk about some of the history behind our favorite Christmas songs and just name some weird Christmas songs I didn't know were Christmas songs. So
there we go.
We're going to start with one I was not familiar. Well, I wasn't familiar with the story. I'm familiar with the song. It's Judy Garland's "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas."
Yeah, I mean that is an iconic song. It's one of those songs that, you know, most people are probably not listening to Judy Garland that often these days. I would imagine. I'm sure she still has a hardcore of fans who love her work, but your average person isn't listening to Judy Garland. But it's one of those songs that appears on like Christmas compilations, Christmas playlists. They play on TV commercials and stuff, and it's like, oh, Christmas is here, Judy Garland.
Well, and it's a beautiful song. It was written for a movie called Meet Me in St. Louis. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Tim. I've never watched it. Don't come for me, internet. I haven't watched it. I know it's supposedly a classic. Apparently, it was originally so sad that Judy Garland refused to sing it. Here's her exact words. She said, "I can't sing this song because it would make me look like a monster to whoever the small child in the movie is." Because at some point in the song, she said something that she just said. They said that she wanted to seem like she was smiling through her tears. And when she brought up the version, if I sang it, little Margaret would cry and think I'm a monster. And so when she was talking to the writer, he said, "Well, I'm sorry, Judy. If you don't like it, that's the way it is. I don't want to write a new lyric." And he left. So then he went home and they convinced him to write a nicer version. But apparently she refused to sing it because it was so sad that she thought they would think she was a monster. And I was trying to find the real original lyrics, but they're lost forever kind of situation. But the song doesn't seem that sad to me now.
No, but you don't know what kind of narrative they were going for in the context of that film. I mean, the lyrics could have been terrible, but I mean, all we know now is the iconic Christmas song that, you know, people love.
Well, but if you think about it, though, because it's saying like, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas, let your heart be light." It could be because there's a lot of other bad stuff going on outside. So they're trying to just focus on Christmas tonight and put all that other stuff out of your mind. So I imagine maybe that's what it was, but I had never heard that. But yes, this is one of those songs that I feel like it is Christmas when you hear. And I like the Judy Garland version. I also like the Frank Sinatra version.
Yeah, Frank does a great verse. Now, his is more big bandy, as you would expect from Frank Sinatra, the pomp and circumstance of the big band.
Well, I mean, to be honest, when you said, I'm like, were we expecting anything else, Tim? I mean, it wouldn't be him. So with that, I'm going to segue into something that I'm wondering if you've ever heard this. Have you ever heard Snoopy's Christmas, the Royal Guardsman?
No, I haven't. I can tell you a Snoopy story. So when I was very much younger, I used to have a little blue wristwatch. It had a blue strap and the face was blue and it had Snoopy on it. And the little hands were Snoopy's feet. And that was the very first watch I ever owned.
That's adorable. So my house is got tons of Charlie Brown stuff in it because my husband's name is Charlie. Well, it's Charles, but he goes by Charlie. He even has a Charlie Brown Never Give Up tattoo on his. So I hear this one all the time. I've always thought the name of it was the Red Baron, but apparently it's not. And I, for the life of me, think it's weird that this is a Christmas song to begin with, because while it takes place in Christmas, it's literally this story of World War I's Christmas truce of 1914 from the perspective of Snoopy facing off against his imaginary antagonist, the Red Baron. And I don't know a whole lot about that, but it's weird to me that there's a Christmas song that's literally just the retelling of a war by a dog.
Yeah, because the Christmas truce is famous because it was in World War II. It was trench warfare, and you had the Germans on one side and the British on the other, and they're shelling and bombing each other and all this stuff. And then Christmas Day comes, they all get out of their trenches. They share photographs, they share food and drinks and hug, and then they go back in the trenches and blow each other up. It's very it's touching on a human level, but bizarre at the same time.
It really is. So from what I understood, it was like the Germans were like, hey, we're just going to start singing Christmas carols. And so everybody started poking their heads out. And the English were like, come on over. Everything's fine. And there's like pictures of them just like hanging out. Well, at some point during that, there was like some of the people kind of look like they were fighter pilots and they had like the classic like helmet looking thing they wore back then. And that's what the Red Baron looks like. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I guess in some way it's a kind of a hint to like, you know, Christmas brings out the nice side of people or whatever. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what it is. But it's a very strange Christmas. I can't believe you've never heard it. We're going to have to make Tim listen to that. But it's definitely an oddball one.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, you know, lots of Christmas songs through the ages, but maybe that one's just passed me by somehow.
Now, another thing, I'm not going to get into it, but I wonder, Tim, have you ever heard Crazy Frog's version of Last Christmas?
I think I have, and luckily I've tuned it out of my brain.
Well, I'm going to have to make you go back and listen to that eventually. Anyway, we're not going to get the story of that one, but that one's a weird one too. All right. So this is one that I'm sure you are very aware of. It's one of my favorites. We probably talked about it on the podcast. And if you've ever seen my Twitter, you know, it says War is Over at the top of my little page. So it's John and Yoko, the Plastic Ono Band, with the Harlem Community Choir, and it's Happy Xmas War is Over.
Yes, this is one of those Christmas songs that we play every year. You know, you hear it, and you're so sad that John isn't around anymore because there's such good music that he was making. And, you know, people have mixed feelings about Yoko and mixed feelings about some of the music he made with Yoko. Because to be quite honest, much of it is completely unlistenable. It's really like weird noise and sound loops and avant-garde. There's one or two good
ones in there.
Yeah, and like there'll be one of those Plastic Ono Band albums, and it will be like most of it is just unlistenable noise, and then there'll be three songs
screaming in the background and hitting a thing.
Exactly.
Yes, and I have my own feelings about her, but for whatever it was, they loved each other. They were happy. You can't help who you love. That's life. With that being said, I agree with Tim. This is one of my go-to favorites. I listen to it every year. So for those who don't know, it's a layering of like wishes about peace, but it was specifically about the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. It was specifically, I don't want to say I don't think they were protesting it as much as saying we could come to an agreement and make the world happy if we wanted to. And so that it had a big global context. And so that's what it's interesting, though. But I always thought of it as more than just like specifically about one war. When I hear the song, I think it's about everything. Like if we want to be happy, if we want to like end like a lot of things, we could if we wanted to. That's
sure.
what I've always taken.
Do you follow Yoko Ono on Twitter?
No, but I feel like I should.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's her. I don't think she has people doing it for her. I assume it's her. And she puts a lot of motivational quotes on there. She puts a lot of stuff that's very oddball, as you would imagine. But one of the recurring themes is like the war is over if you want it. Peace is available if you want it. And it's true. I mean, all the leaders of the world, if they wanted peace, they could have peace.
My favorite is whenever I talk about whatever someone says something about, you know, a woman becoming a world leader. And I always laugh because somebody will say something, you know, about, you know, men are supposed to lead or something nonsense. I'm like, yeah, they've been the ones leading for how long? Where has it gotten us?
Exactly.
Let's just give the other one a try.
Exactly. I mean, it should be the best. It should be the best person to lead, regardless of gender, color, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, Tim. But you know, there's still dumb people in our world. None of our listeners, but some of them are dumb. Yeah. If you're listening to this podcast, I have to think you're pretty smart. Wink. Nod. All right. So moving along to Christmas. So next one. This is probably, and it's from a movie too. You probably know where this is going. It is Bing Crosby's White Christmas.
Yeah. Now there's another one, much like Judy Garland. There's probably some people out there enjoying the work of Bing Crosby on a random Tuesday night. But I would imagine your average person, even someone who listens to lots of different genres of music, is not spending a lot of time with Bing Crosby. But this is so identifiably a Christmas song. It appears in commercials. It appears in TV shows and films. It's everywhere. You can't avoid this.
And most recently, Michael Bublé did a version featuring Shania Twain, everybody.
Well, there we go.
Can't go wrong with that.
I can tell you a Michael Bublé story. I once almost saw Michael Bublé perform. It was early 2000s. I went to watch David Letterman's TV show being taped in the Ed Sullivan Theater in New York City. I'd always been a massive fan of David Letterman, and I think I probably said I really enjoy his oddball humor. Yes. So we was in New York on a trip, and we got tickets to go and see the show being taped. And they were free. You just had to apply for them, and you went there. Yeah. And I looked on the website for the episode rundowns, and it was supposed to be Michael Bublé. And was like, yes, we're going to see Michael Bublé perform. And they did the whole show. And then at the end of the show, Dave Letterman says, where's Michael Bublé? And then someone said, and he said, oh, Michael Bublé didn't make it. And he said, oh, okay, all right. And then they made like a cut. And then he's like, okay, thanks for coming to the Late Show. Bye-bye. And we never saw Michael Bublé.
Do you know who they inserted in his place, like when the show went live? Or was there just nothing there?
I mean, they've those kind of shows are recorded what they call live to tape. Yeah. So they don't run it live. What they do is they record it in the afternoon, but it follows the same format as if it is live. So you have the commercial breaks, you have everything, and it runs for the same period of time. And then if they need to make an edit, they will, but 9 times out of 10, they won't. So with that, they probably cut that bit out and ran to a commercial or something.
Well, no, what I was thinking, though, is I wasn't thinking that. I was saying, look, if they had a set amount of time for the show and they had set time out for Michael Bublé, would they have had to put some type of segment in where he was supposed to be?
Yeah, they would have probably put a comedy skit in or something that was
Can't believe they didn't ask you, Tim. What a missed opportunity.
I mean, I was in the audience. I mean, I could have sat in with Paul Schaefer and the CBS Orchestra. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Tim would just be like, throw me a guitar. I don't care what guitar. Just throw me a guitar. Give me a kid's swinger or something that they got at Walmart. Just give it to me. All right. So what I was going to say, there wasn't really any like super cool facts behind the Bing Crosby White Christmas, but I just wanted to mention this because I thought it was cool. So it is for the Christmas movie Holiday Inn. And apparently he got to sing it as like a straight shot for the movie. No cuts, no nothing, just beautifully done. The version we hear is like he did it once and he was done. So that's pretty cool. But also, it says that it is in the Guinness World Record book as the best-selling single of all time to this day.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because, again, it's one of those songs. I think we covered it on our physical media episode. Mm-hmm. It would be a song that would have been available on 78 and it would have been available on 45, 33, CD. I mean, everything up to streaming and high definition downloads and everything, that song is going to be available. And as with a lot of these holiday songs, they are what you call evergreen because it doesn't matter what's fashionable. It doesn't matter, what the genre of music is big at the time. Christmas hits just seem to completely escape that.
It's true. We've talked about, I think it was on the physical media. For some reason, Christmas songs, and I think it's because they go across the board. They're international. Mm-hmm. Christmas generally, not every country, obviously. I know that everybody, but you've got America, you've got Canada, you've got the UK, so there's a big audience for them, and they just seem to. But everybody, I mean, people who like country and rock tend to at some point listen to Christmas music, right? Yeah, even if they don't listen to the same genre. So it makes sense. So, what I always find interesting, though, Tim, and I am one of these people who struggles with it. Like every year there'll be some artist who tries to come up with their new original Christmas song. Mm-hmm. The only person who has done it and done it well was Mariah Carey. And I know you're thinking, but she did this song. It was called, and she did it with Ariana Grande and Jennifer Hudson. And I can't remember what it was, Santa something Christmas. And it was wonderful. It was amazing. She really is the queen of Christmas. Like hers was really good. But I struggle when artists try to come up with a new like arrangement or their new Christmas song. I can't get into them. I don't know if I'm a traditionalist or if there's something I'm missing, but it just doesn't do anything for me.
Well, I think a lot of artists think about their bank balance at the festive season, because if you can get one of those Christmas hits that sticks, you will have that forever.
No, that makes sense. That's exactly, you're right. I mean, I know why they're doing it, but for some reason, they just don't stick for me.
No, I think you're probably a lot like me. There's 20, 30, 40, maybe absolutely iconic Christmas songs, and they're the ones you want to listen to. You don't necessarily want whoever is the flavor of the month's doing their Christmas song or version of a Christmas song. It just seems it's just not as good.
And they always seem to come off cheesier and cheesier every time. I think it's part of it. But I will say, Mariah Carey, Oh Santa, that's what it was. It was Mariah Carey, Jennifer Hudson, and Ariana Grande 2, 4, 5. I don't know how many years ago it was. Couldn't tell you, Tim. But they did this one. This is the only one I can think of that has come out, modernly that I actually liked. And that probably just goes back to Mariah Carey being the Queen of Christmas, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I struggle with that. And I'm sorry for the people out there who are trying to make new Christmas music. I'm being open-minded. I really am. I just don't like it.
Well, I have my 200 or 300 songs on my iTunes that I listen to every year. And I think really that's all I'm interested in.
I'm not a big Christmas music person to begin with. Charlie, my husband, really is. He loves Christmas music. He's the one that as soon as the end of November comes, he wants to listen to it. But my problem is like you said, there's only 20 or so songs and they just start repeating after a while.
Exactly. I mean, I will be listening to a Christmas album a day in the month of December because, as many people know, I post my daily album listening on Twitter as part of a music listening group with Pat Francis's Rock Solid podcast. And I always make sure I listen to a fresh album every day. But December is always Christmas albums. And I always make sure I ingest that music and get in the festive spirit.
Look at you, Tim. I'll try. I mean, Charlie forces me to, so I don't really have a choice. But anyway, so on to Christmas music. This one is one that I don't even know if I've heard it. I'll be curious to see if Tim has heard it. It is Run DMC, and it's Christmas in Hollis.
Yes, I'm very familiar with that song. Believe it or not, I'm familiar with the Run DMC song. I'm familiar with a number of Run DMC songs. It's Tricky, King of Rock. I mean... It's
like that. I love Run DMC. I just don't know that I've ever heard this.
Yeah, I've heard that. It appeared on one of those very special Christmas albums. And I think it was some compilation. Yeah.
Sorry, Tim. I was going to say I have it here.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
the 1987 Special Olympics charity album. A Very Special Christmas had incredible contributions from A-list artists like Madonna, Whitney Houston, Bruce Springsteen, and Stevie Nicks. But most of their songs, mostly covers, were overshadowed by the standout track, which is Christmas in Hollis by Run DMC. Of course, the hip-hop group, it's tricky. It's like that. Basically, it's about Christmas in the neighborhood of Hollis, Queens. Mm-hmm. And it sampled Clarence Carter's Backdoor Santa, and sounded very unlike any of the other Christmas tunes. So people said it seemed to stand out.
Yeah, it's one of those tracks that does appear on Christmas compilations and stuff. Are you familiar with Clarence Carter's Backdoor Santa?
I am. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, a cheekier Christmas song, it's fair to say.
It's ironically, I'm more familiar with that than I am with the Run DMC.
Yeah, I have a few of those very special Christmas albums. And like you say, it was to raise money for the Special Olympics. And there were some really good artists that contributed music to those. And I think they made 3 or 4 of those compilations, I believe.
Probably. I mean, it said it was the Special Olympics, so I would think they probably did it for multiple years.
Yeah. But yeah, I know that the Christmas in Hollis track is very much seen as a standout on that particular album.
Well, I would imagine, considering the list of artists I saw, they were the only kind of hip-hop duo. Also, I really enjoy Run DMC's sound. I think they're just fun. Like, they just have a fun sound to them. So
yeah, I mean, I am not a person who likes rap music at all. I find certainly contemporary rap is very angry and it's very, very negative, and it is not pleasant to my ear. I mean, I like heavy rock and metal and thrash and stuff like that.
I've heard some of the stuff you listen to too.
Yeah, I mean, I can listen to all kinds of incredibly heavy rock music, but it doesn't seem to have the same, certainly negative connotation. And secondly, the sound of it is more pleasing to my ear. Something about contemporary rap, just the minute it starts, it's like, I have to turn that off. That doesn't do it for me. But Run DMC, I don't know, their rhymes are funny. Their rhymes are inventive. And it's not just like shouting. They're telling a story with their raps. And plus, a lot of the music that they would sample to create their backings often would be classic rock songs.
Yeah, that's what they were known for. If you go down the Run DMC like rabbit hole, there's a whole thing about that. And then there was, obviously we all know they collaborated with Aerosmith, which made them iconic. It was like the first big collaboration like that. I think we talked about it in one of the episodes. But yeah, that's what they would do is they would take a lot of older music, just kind of like we were talking about Backdoor Christmas, and sample it or, do something, layer it into their song. So it gave it a different sound, but they're also really fun. Sugar Hill Gang's another one that was kind of like that. They had some fun, upbeat kind of rap songs back in the day.
Yeah, Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang, especially that the full 10-minute, 11-minute version of that. That is really good. The interesting thing about Sugar Hill Gang, that wasn't sampled. That was them playing the backing track all the way through. And the bass player said the version that you hear on the record was actually just one take. I think they did several takes, but what you hear is one take. And he's playing the riff from Chic's Good Times. And he said by the end of 12 minutes, the bass player's hands were cramping up so much he could barely play it. And then it finished, and he's like, oh.
He went home and took like 74 ibuprofen.
Yeah.
All right. So on to our next one. Speaking of Bing Crosby, this is David Bowie and Bing Crosby, and it's Little Drummer Boy / Peace on Earth. So traditionally, Little Drummer Boy is known as one of those, famous Christmas songs. But when David Bowie and Bing Crosby got together, it became more of kind of an uplifting, joyous song. So basically, it says the unlikely pairing came to thanks to Bowie's mom, who loved Bing Crosby and convinced her son to perform on Crosby's 1977 TV special, Merry Old Christmas. Bowie loved his mom, but drew the line at singing the dreaded Little Drummer Boy. He said it was too dark and too bleh, basically. So some quick thinking writers whipped together an entirely new song. The tune was called Peace on Earth, and Bowie sang it in perfect counter harmony to Crosby's Little Drummer Boy.
There we are. Do you know, for the longest time, I thought that song was one of those posthumous virtual duos where David Bowie was just, sung over the existing track and they edited it together. I didn't realize until very recently that they were actually in the studio together and it was a true collaboration.
I kind of thought that too, because it does sound like two things spun together. I'm not going to lie, it kind of does. But it sounds like that was on purpose because he wanted to give a counter to the very kind of dark Little Drummer Boy sound. So that's why it sounds like a completely different song, because it really is.
That's true. But I mean, the inventive world of David Bowie, it doesn't surprise me that he was looking for something different that sounded a little bit oddball. And in fact, David Bowie is one of those artists that we haven't really explored on this podcast yet. I mean, he is somebody much like we were talking about Fleetwood Mac and Queen, where his career goes through so many different genres of music. And depending on what you like, I mean, there's something for you all the way through his career. But I don't know. Maybe he's someone who hasn't really come up yet in our conversations.
Not really. I mean, I'm sure an occasional song here and there, but we haven't done a David Bowie episode or anything dedicated. Maybe we'll put that in the back burner because that's a good idea.
I mean, I did in the last episode, I did recommend everyone listens to Let's Dance. So maybe we're heading in the Bowie direction. I don't know.
Fair enough. Are you going to take your spaceship there, Tim? That's what he would want.
Well, it depends if there's life on Mars, really.
I don't know. I guess you'll find out. So this next song doesn't have a big, long traditional hearing, but I specifically put it on here because it involves David Letterman, which is Tim's favorite, as we were weirdly talking about earlier. So this is Darling Love's Christmas, Baby Please Come Home. So she's known, they're calling her the Queen of Christmas. Sorry, Mariah Carey. But it says David Letterman used to have an annual tradition of inviting her on the show every year to perform it.
Yes, absolutely. So I remember you'd always look forward to the Christmas episode. He had a lot of people would come in on the Christmas episode every single year. And I for the life of me, I can't remember the comedian's name. But there was a guy who used to come along who used to throw a football at the Christmas tree to try and knock a pizza off it. Now, I don't know how that ever happened to become a thing, but then that would happen. And then the episode would close with Darling Love doing that song. And it was like, that show aired maybe a week before Christmas, and you knew the festive season was here when you saw that on Dave. It was just perfect.
So there you go. I just had to throw that in there for Tim to bring him back to his David Letterman days.
And the guy who played saxophone in the band, I forget, I think it was Bones Malone, I think his name was. He used to come out and do the sax solo. It was beautiful. I can picture it now. I've seen it 20 times, but I can picture it now.
I'm Googling this live on air because Bones, whatever, saxophone.
He either played trumpet or sax. I can't remember. I do remember his name was Bones Malone.
Was he the one that was in the Blues Brothers too?
Yeah, because Paul Schaefer and a lot of the David Letterman band people were in the Blues Brothers. Well, Paul Schaefer was not in the Blues Brothers. He's in Blues Brothers too. But a lot of those people in and around that music scene were in the Blues Brothers.
Tommy Malone. Bones Malone, also known as Bo. Yeah, that's him. He apparently plays the saxophone, the trumpet, the tuba, the flute, and the bass.
There we go.
But he specializes in the trombone. And the reason I know that is that famous scene. There's a famous scene in the Blues Brothers where he's playing, and people were in the comments on YouTube, on the YouTube saying, "Hey, look, there's Bones Malone." And then when Tim said that, the bells went off in my head.
There we are. Yeah, all of the people who played with Paul Schaefer in the CBS Orchestra were all top-level musicians. A lot of them were session players, played with all kinds of things. Like Anton Fig, the drummer, he played drums with Kiss for years, and he was Joe Bonamassa's drummer. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that. And Paul Schaefer has played with so many amazing different people. But like Will Lee, the bass player Will Lee, like if you've heard a song that was recorded in New York in the 70s or the 80s or the early 90s, it's probably going to have Will Lee on bass.
It's fair. I mean, wouldn't that be cool to have your name known as that? Like, if people were like, if you heard a song from the 70s, da 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 da, and they just say, then it's probably got somebody. That would be so cool to be known as that person. I swear, being a session musician would be like one of my dreams, because you could just have so many stories for days. Oh,
I mean, I highly recommend listening to or reading Steve Lukather's autobiography, because, he's known as the guitarist from Toto, but he famously is the, session player to the stars. I mean, he's played on everything. He played on Michael Jackson's Thriller album, amongst other things. Yep. And his autobiography is amazing. And what's even better, if you get the audiobook version, he reads it himself. And he reads his book, but he ad-libs in it. People have said that if you want to get the full experience of his book, which is called The Gospel According to Luke, which is his nickname, Luke, you need to get the audiobook version too, because it adds so many more stories to the written version. Well, I'm looking for a new book, so I may add that. I love reading stuff like that. And like I said, those stories, when you read about people who worked either in record companies or session musicians, they have some of the most interesting stories, because musicians, which, me and Tim talk about them every week, and we live, eat, and breathe this kind of stuff. They're quirky. They have weird things. They do weird things. You know what I mean? There's something about being a musician that makes some people very quirky, and they have some of the most interesting stories. Exactly. Well, if that's the case, I highly recommend to you The Gospel According to Luke by Steve Lukather. And that's not an ad. Tim was not sponsored to say that. No, I'm just saying that as a genuine... It was recommended to me by a friend, and I got the audiobook version, and it is fabulous. All right. I'll give it a coup once we get off air. So this one, I just wanted to put it in there because... I can. It's not really got some crazy story behind it. It's just a ridiculous Christmas song. It is AC/DC's Mistress for Christmas. And again, that is a song that gets played around this house at Christmas time. It's I forget which album it's on. It's a Brian Johnson era album. Let's find out. I don't know off the top of my head. Is it on Ball Breaker, I think? The Mistress for Christmas. I'm giving fine. It's on Razor's Edge. I should have known that. Razor's Edge. There you go. I'm sad I didn't know that. I should have known that. I pride myself on that, but my mind went blank when you asked. I mean, they're very upfront about what they want for Christmas. Well, I mean, they're a hard-living rock and roll band. They might not necessarily want socks or some kind of men's toiletries. So they're very clear what they want. They're a hard-living rock band on the road, and they just know what they want. So I like how at the end of the song it just says, "And ring the bells."
I'll let everybody else go Google the lyrics. That's just my favorite part. That one gets played. I listen to that one at Christmas too. So I had to throw it in there. There's no crazy story behind it. Does it really have to be? It's AC/DC.
No, the thing is with AC, as we've discussed before, AC/DC has released dozens and dozens of albums, and for the most part, they more or less exactly sound the same, especially as you get into the Brian Johnson era, post Back in Black. There's much the same. However, each one of those albums, all the songs are great. Now, they all sound much the same, but it's a great song.
It is a great song. It's fun. I love it. So this one is specifically for Andy. No, I'm kidding. This one's for everybody who's not in the camp of Andy. Tim will know what that means. This is C-3PO and R2-D2's Sleigh Ride.
Now, is this from the famous Star Wars Christmas album, Christmas in the Stars?
It is. So it's basically, I love the little thing. It's like, from a galaxy far, far away, check out Christmas with the Stars. The cosmic 1980s holiday album tie-in features songs by droids, by all the droids. If you're looking for another Star Wars song, there's What Can You Get a Wookiee for Christmas as well, when he already owns a comb. So
that's correct. Yeah, that is a classic.
So yeah, their version of Sleigh Ride, I've heard a few times. It's really cute. I am not a Star Wars fan, but I have listened to the Christmas in the Stars album. I don't know what that says about me.
Do you want an interesting rock and roll fact about that album?
What is that?
That album is the first recorded music from John Bon Jovi.
Well, that probably explains why it's so expensive to buy the actual physical copy of the album. Have you seen the prices?
Yeah, they made a CD reissue a few years ago, but if you want a vinyl copy, it's through the roof. So what happened is I think the guy who owned the studio, or the producer on that, was the brother of John Bon Jovi, or was related to John Bon Jovi, and he was looking to get into music. And he said, we said, we've got this session. He said, you should come in and we can get you to sing some lines. And that is, as I said, the very first time you ever hear John Bon Jovi recorded. He appears on one track, and I think it's like We Wish You Something, a Merry Christmas, or...
So just so everybody knows, to put kind of what Tim's saying into numbers, the CD, if you want to buy just used from Amazon, it's $59.
Mm-hmm.
The vinyl is $70, but this is the part that's crazy to me. There's only two on Amazon. It's the actual cassettes. One used, one new. $639.
Well, I mean, there are people out there who are cassette collectors. They're called tape heads, and people will pay a premium for that stuff. I mean, the CD was reissued a little while ago. I don't think the album has had like one of these token record store day re-releases yet. But it surprises me with the popularity of Star Wars that it hasn't been reissued and, is more widely available.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get that, but like, how many people even have an actual cassette player they could play it in? Tim gave Charlie one somewhere. That wasn't a cassette player, was it?
No, it was a Discman.
No, Charlie bought a cassette player so he could do the tape record thing for... Never mind. That's a surprise. But there is a tape player at my house, but it's not normal.
Well, you can still buy a tape deck. They still make those. They all have the same Tanashi mechanism in them, and they're nowhere near as good as like the old Nakamichi decks or Marantz decks or anything like that. But for people who are into the tape thing, and some people love tapes and collect tapes and still make mixtapes and stuff, you can still buy the equipment.
There you go, everybody. Get on that. Maybe if you want that for Christmas, Tim could show you where to find it on the internet. So another band that you could buy a tape for, related to our next song, it is the Kinks version of Father Christmas. Have you ever heard this, Tim?
No, do you know I haven't? I'm not really a big Kinks fan. Outside of, You Really Got Me and Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon and stuff like that. They have a huge back catalogue and people love the Kinks. And if we could just steer this back into the previous album,
okay.
Luke Skywalker, i.e. Mark Hamill, is a massive fan of the Kinks.
Who knew? I didn't do that on purpose, everybody. Not a clue. Wouldn't know that. But what I thought was interesting, Tim, and maybe you need to give it a listen. The Kinks' Father Christmas is a commentary on materialism surrounding Christmas and Santa. It's from 1978. It track about beating up a Santa mall, a Christmas like Santa in the mall, because they just wanted cold hard cash instead of toys. That's the whole thing. And it was their protest on materialism surrounding Christmas. And I watched the video and listened to it. And I was like, dang, it's funny. I always kind of thought of the Kinks as more of an upbeat, but like you said, I am the radio hits person when it comes to them. I don't know anything. I've never deep dived into them. So maybe they do have this kind of thing, but I wouldn't have felt that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the radio hits. I'm Lola, that kind of stuff. But yeah, they have a huge career and people are super into the Kinks. Outside of Luke Skywalker, people do really love the Kinks. And they have this amazing career and this huge following, but it's just something that I've never got into. Maybe it's something I really should. Maybe it's great.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you need to go at least listen to that Tim and report back because it was pretty funny. I'll give him that one. It was good.
Okay.
So anyway, this one is something that people are going to get mad at me because I don't know much about it and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, but I have watched Doctor Who. I'm going to start there. I've watched Doctor Who. So don't come for me, internet. I'm just not a huge, is there like a term for who something? I don't know.
I don't know if Doctor Who fans have a name because like you have like Trekkers or Trekkies depending for Star Trek.
Yeah, and like
if you're into Knight Rider, you're just, I don't know what that word is. It's just me.
That's just Tim. So it actually says Tim's name in the. So anyway, back to why I brought that up is the Go-Go's did a song that's called "I'm Gonna Spend Christmas with a Dalek." D-A-L Dalek. Okay, I said it right. I was worried you guys were going to come for me. For those Doctor Who fans out there, the song is sung by the isn't sung by the Go-Go's you're thinking of though.
Oh,
and it's not a great song at all. It's actually really bad. But it's a parody about a motor robot who wants plum pudding by an alternative band called the Go-Go's.
When did this come out? Is this like 60s or 70s Doctor Who?
70s.
Yeah.
70s.
See, because that's when I know Doctor Who's. Like, it used to be on a Saturday early evening before around the time of Are You Being Served and stuff like that. I remember it being on TV, come back from my nan and granddad's house, and Doctor Who was on the TV. Tom Baker was the Doctor. You had the Cybermen, you had the Daleks, you had K9. He always had an assistant. And that for me is Doctor Who. And then they've sort of spun this out into this huge franchise. But outside of a brief foray into watching it in the 70s, it never really resonated with me.
Yeah, I mean, this might have been late 60s, early 70s. I mean, the picture of it in like the video, the Daleks look like the old ones that you saw, the old little mutant characters or whatever. The Daleks are those like robotic things. They're like a huge. They got little like circle things at the bottom of them.
And they're famously, and they go exterminate, exterminate, and they had like things on the front which were either like laser weapons or something, and they were made out of sink plungers.
I mean, that's what it looks like for sure.
Yes.
Like I said, if you look at it now, that is what it looks like. But I just thought it was funny that when I read that, I was like, oh, the Go-Go. Oh, no. Okay. It's the alternative Go-Go singing about extraterrestrials wanting plum pudding.
I can give you another, as I open up the Pandora's box of my brain for Doctor Who knowledge, I can tell you the Dalek, which had a Dalek body and a person on top. Do you know what that name was?
What's that?
Davros.
Well,
why do I even know that?
We will never know. Well, one day if somebody wins Jeopardy because Tim's knowledge, he wants at least 10%. And
I'll settle for 8. I'm not too fussy.
All right. So back to actual Christmas music people know. Because I just threw in a couple of fun ones there in the middle because I thought it'd make me and Tim laugh. Did you know the song Let It Snow? Like Let It Snow, was composed by Joel Stein and lyrics is Sammy Can. I don't know if I said his name right. It's CHAN. Desperately wanted, and he wrote it in July. So Let It Snow was wrote in July of 1945, and he said that he was in the middle of a heat wave in Hollywood, was trying to write music, and all he could think about is how he wanted it to snow because it was too hot.
Yeah, because I mean, if you write a Christmas song in November or December, the likelihood is it's especially back, years ago, it's not going to be released in November or December. It's going to need to be mixed and then pressed and then distributed. And it's going to be February by the time it gets out there and it's too late. So, of course, if you're planning your Christmas masterpiece, it needs to be done in the summer, ready for the Christmas season. But equally, I've been in Los Angeles in the summer and it gets stinking hot.
I just thought that was funny. It sounds like basically he's sitting there going, he said he was looking out the window. It's super hot. And all he could think about is how he just wanted it to snow.
There we are. Does it really snow much in LA? I don't know.
Not in Northern California does.
Mm-hmm.
But not as far as I'm aware, no. But I mean, I'm sure there's probably been it snowed in, Texas before. When I was in Florida, in northern Florida, it snowed a few times because, I was born there. So I imagine at some point it does, Tim, but not often.
I know that it snows in Vegas because I've seen pictures of the Luxor with it covered in snow.
Well, there you go. Well, Tim, I mean, maybe that answers your question. I'm not sure. It didn't answer your question at all. Not even a little bit. So back to our weird kind of what the meaning behind these songs were. So another one that I didn't know was, well, I guess I would have known it was about war when I think about it now, but I didn't know listening to it was specifically about World War II. So I'll Be Home for Christmas. Walter Kent and James Gannon's song captured a mood of homesick Americans in 1943 because of the soldiers who were in the depths of World War II. It was the most requested song at Christmas USO shows in Europe as well as the Pacific.
There's a number of songs like this which have those sort of war overtones where people want to be back with their families and what have you. There's like Jonah Lewis' "Stop the Cavalry," which on the face of it is not really a Christmas song. Well, I suppose it says "I wish I could be home for Christmas," but it doesn't have the prerequisite sleigh bells in it like a lot of these songs do. But there's many which have this theme.
The prerequisite sleigh bell.
That's true.
I just caught on what you said.
Well, that's what you do. You take the hi-hat out and you put sleigh bells in and it becomes a Christmas song.
That's true. Now, everybody knows that Joy was telling people how she can't get behind modern day Christmas. Take Tim's idea and maybe it'll work. Wherever you were going to put a hi-hat in, just put a sleigh bell.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. Or even, actually, leave the hi-hat in. You just need a sleigh bell track running all the way through.
And make sure, for good measure, so Hannah will enjoy it. You put some clapping in there as well.
Oh, clap it. Yeah, I mean, that'd be perfect. Bit of clapping, some sleigh bells. Bob's your uncle. There's your Christmas hit.
Look at us. We just wrote our own Christmas song. All right. Another one that I wouldn't have ever thought this, but it's kind of dark, I guess. The Do You Hear What I Hear? You know that song, right, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, it's a plea for peace. Apparently, songwriters and then married couple Noel Brigidy, I don't know if I said that right, and Gloria Baker wrote the song during the Cuban Missile Crisis. In October of 1962, this later went on to sell more than 250,000 copies during the Christmas season, and it was their call to end the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Cuban Missile Crisis was an incredibly dark time in history, and had that have gone slightly a different way, neither of us would be sitting here right now.
Well, my dad, I talk about my dad's from Louisiana, but he grew up in Florida. He was a child in a Florida public school during the Cuban Missile Crisis and talks about, constantly having to run drills about getting under your desk, all this kind of stuff. We talk about, and, I don't want to get into that because it's kind of dark, but, they talk about, with shooters and stuff, kids having to run drills like that nowadays in America. But Dad says when he was in elementary school, that's what he had to do. They had to practice every day in case the Cuban Missile Crisis went awry.
Yeah, I went to on a completely weird tangent. I once went to a decommissioned nuclear bunker in the UK. And I think it's Kelvedon Hatch Nuclear Bunker. And it's outside of London. I think it's somewhere towards Kent. And it was declassified and decommissioned in the 80s. So it's a place where the government would go in the event of a nuclear war. And it has room for the government there and the press and medical staff and soldiers and everything. It's an entire completely sealed unit, which is underground. It looks like an old farmhouse on top. And then you go through like some doors, and then it's like this huge labyrinth of stuff. The interesting thing is it's like a complete snapshot of the 80s because all the technology is 80s era. So it's like you're walking through time. But the interesting thing is that there's a room that you go into which shows all these public safety films from that era of like you're saying about having to do all these drills and things. So I don't think it was just in Florida. I think it was everywhere.
Well, Camp David. You've heard of Camp David, right? Mm-hmm. I always wonder because it was like Roosevelt liked to go there to get away from the White House and stuff. And they still use Camp David, and I know it's got like some long name that's longer than Camp David. That's just what we all call it because it's in Maryland, so it's just right outside of D.C. I always wondered if there's a hidden bunker there or something of that nature because the White House has tunnels.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, all that stuff is super classified. It's like you ever done the Greenbrier bunker tour?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I have.
Yeah, the interesting thing, so there's this large, incredibly posh hotel in West Virginia, not far from where we are, called the Greenbrier. Mm-hmm. And it had some secret bunker underneath it, which supposedly where government and other such figures would go in the event of some kind of crisis. And it got decommissioned, and it's now supposedly a data warehouse where you can put secure data. And they let you tour the bunker. Well, actually, what they do is they let you tour one very small corner of the bunker. And I'm of the opinion, yes, it's declassified, but it's still being used for what it was designed for because they don't let you go anywhere in it, and they just tell you it's a data warehouse.
I'm pretty sure it was a Cold War fallout shelter, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's what I remember them telling us that. Because you're right, you spend like $40 or some stupid number to go in there, and they take you 2 feet in. You're like, and where's the rest?
Yeah.
Why did I just buy this ticket?
Well, I'm glad I went because, I've got this story now to tell, and I've been there and I experienced it. But yeah, I think whatever it was originally designed for, it's still being used for that.
And then isn't there a place called the Greenbrier Hotel? It was called like Project Greek Island or something.
Something like that.
Anyway, me and Tim, please don't come for us at the FBI. We don't know what we're talking about. This is going out on the internet, Tim. If I end up in Guantanamo Bay, it's your fault. All right. How much time do we have left, Tim?
We could probably do a couple more.
Okay. We'll do 2 or 3 more. So let me pick a good one. We'll change it up to something ridiculous and funny since we've been talking about war. Are you familiar with Dominic the Donkey?
No.
You've never heard of Lou Monte's Dominic the Donkey? So it's terrible, but it's amazing all at the same time. It's a singing donkey.
I mean, why would it not be a singing donkey? I mean,
so it's weird as no other. I'll give you that. But even for a novelty song, for some, Dominic the Donkey, is like a weird cult classic. There's actually some history in Dominic the Donkey. So it's an earworm. And so basically, let me go through this real quick. So in the song, he talks about the donkey. He talks about it's a donkey who never kicks, who loves to dance. When he starts shaking his tails, the old folks, or godmothers and godfathers, join the fun. Like all this stuff about Dominic the donkey. So apparently it's in a dance called the Tatrtell, terrarium, whatever. It's abbreviation for a traditional Italian folk dance. So most importantly, Dominic, he's from the hills of Italy on Christmas Eve and helps Santa bring out the presents to boys and girls. So apparently this donkey is actually a known thing in some southern Italy and Greece.
Okay.
So because in southern Italy and Greece, Santa delivers presents on a donkey. I didn't know that.
Actually, I think I do know that because every year we watch the 1981 Boxing Day Tiswas Christmas special, and there is a little segment in there about how Santa delivers his presents throughout the year, and the donkey thing is in that little section, so I do know that.
So there you go. So that is where the singing donkey. I cannot believe you've never heard Dominic the Donkey. No, that's so weird to me.
I will be giving that a goog after we end this call today.
But yeah, so there is some like truth behind it because he describes the donkey. He talks about it, give it presents. But yeah, and I would imagine Monty, his name's Mote, is Italian. I've never Googled that, but that seems accurate. Don't come from the internet if he's like from Switzerland. It just sounds Italian in my brain. It doesn't sound Swiss, okay? So I had never heard this in a million years. So you've heard Grandma's Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, right?
Absolutely, by Dr. Elmo.
So have you ever heard Grandpa's gonna sue the pants off of Santa by Dr. Elmo?
Now, funny you should say that. Yes, I have. And let me tell you for why. I bought a compact disc mystery box off eBay where it's 100 CDs and it was like $20 with free ship. And you get them and you accept the fact that 85 of them you're going to throw away because they're terrible. But one of the ones that's in there was a whole Dr. Elmo album. And I had that very album and I put it in a brand new jewel case so we could listen to it every year. And yes, I have heard that song.
So, and Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer was redone by the country artist, and that's the one most people hear most of the time. But apparently there's an animated film, Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer, which exists apparently. Didn't know that. But yeah, it's also like tropical, they said. Like it's a tropical version. And they're in the tropics for some reason in the movie. But yeah, this one is called Grandpa's gonna sue the pants off of Santa. Is it because Grandma got ran over by the reindeer? Is that why she's gonna sue Santa, or he's gonna sue Santa?
I would imagine so. I mean, you're
the one who's heard it.
It speaks to the litigious culture of the United States. I mean, like if you can't fix it by suing someone, what can you do?
So, I mean, you're probably right. It sounds accurate. I love that you've heard that though.
Yeah, I mean it's quite the album. I had it playing in the album playing in the car the other day when we was going out to buy wrapping paper or something, and Hannah said, "This is terrible. Can you turn it off?"
Well, there must not have been a lot of clapping on that album.
No, it was pretty much clap free for the most part.
Well, Tim, you missed an opportunity because, I mean, who doesn't want to listen to a clap-free version of Christmas music? So this is interesting, and this is not, I mean, I don't know much about Catholics. I just don't. I'm not Catholic. I didn't grow up Catholic. But I thought it was interesting. The 12 Days of Christmas, you've heard that song, Partridge in a Pear Tree and all that stuff. It began in it may actually, it's not confirmed, It may have actually been an 18th century memory game intended to help young Catholics learn the tenets of their faith. So over the centuries, some said the song's gifts have hidden meanings, including the true love, like the turtle dove, true love, and the partridge in a pear tree is actually Jesus.
I didn't know that.
That would have never even dawned on me because I guess in my mind, I just assumed. Now, this is all hearsay. We don't know for sure. This is just some hidden meanings behind it. And I guess there's 12 pillars or 12 things of faith. I don't know. I'm not Catholic. So like 2 turtle doves equals, okay, here's the symbols. 2 turtle doves equals the Old and New Testaments. 3 French horns equals hope, faith, and charity. 4 calling birds of the 4 gospels and or 4 evangelists, 5 golden rings, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. I don't know how to say that word, so I'm not going to say it. 6 geese a laying, the 6 days of the 6 days of creation, 7 swans of swimming, the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And it could also the 7 sacraments. It says it could have 2. 8 maids of milky, the 8 Beatitudes, I don't know what that is. 9 ladies dancing, the 9 fruits of the Holy Spirits, and 10 lords leaping, the 10 commandments. 11 pipers piping, the 11 faithful apostles, and 12 drummers drumming, the 12 points doctrine of apostles. That guy's creed.
There we are. Well, I didn't know any of that. I will tell you, when I think of the 12 Days of Christmas, what comes to mind is the Alan Partridge Christmas special, Knowing Me, Knowing Yule, where he starts off doing the 12 Days of Christmas. And then there's a charity Christmas cracker pull that has a kidney dialysis machine in it. And then the cracker bursts into flames. And then he shames the company that made it, which is White City Pyrotechnics. Now, that is the 12 Days of Christmas for me. What you say is probably correct and is important to a lot of people, but that's where I go when I think of that song.
Tim, I have no idea. I've never heard of that. And they will say that that's all folklore. They can't really... Folklore? I think I said that word right. Anyway, that word, when it came off my tongue, it felt weird. But anyway, so they don't know for sure. But I mean, somebody wrote all that out. So I thought it was just kind of cool. I had no clue. So I've never heard this. And the meaning behind it sounds pretty obvious. I'm curious to know if Tim has heard John Denver's Please Daddy, Don't Get Drunk This Christmas.
I believe I have heard it. And I think there's no hidden meaning. I just think it's a child who didn't want their dad to get drunk at Christmas because he probably gets angry or abusive or unpleasant.
So John Denver really didn't want his father to get drunk on Christmas. So it is included on 2 albums. He thought it was important to have it on 2 albums. The 1973's Farewell in some word I can't say, and 1975's Rocky Mountain Christmas. I can't say a lot of words today. It's Andromeda. I'm guessing that's the name of a city.
Andromeda.
Sure. But yeah, so apparently he thought it was important enough to put the message out on 2 different albums.
Well, there we go. Get it out there and hopefully it will stick.
I just thought that was funny. I'm like, I've never heard that. Nope. Not even a little bit. All right. Let's see.
Let's round it off with one more, Joy. Then I have a question for you.
Oh, okay. So this is one that I had heard, but I didn't know if you knew it existed. Beck's version of the Little Drum Machine Boy. Let me restate that.
No, I haven't. For many years, when people spoke of Beck, I thought they were talking about the guitarist Jeff Beck, and it was. Because I'd read guitar magazines and they're referencing Beck, and I was like, "What, Jeff Beck?"
So I'm a loser, baby. Doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah, but subsequently, I do know that track, and I know that other song that's got 2 turntables and a microphone.
I got 2 turntables and a microphone. Where it's at?
And that the video for that references William Shatner's Rocket Man from the 1978 Sci-Fi Awards.
So there you have it. All right. So the little drum, before Tim asked this question, I just want to run through it. The Little Drum Machine Boy is exactly what you guys think. So 808 beats begin to mingle with silver bells drifting through the air. According to Beck's Christmas oddity, the Little Drum Machine Boy. So they're literally using a drum machine in the background. It appeared on his 1996 Contemplation Just Say Noel, which also featured a catchy tune from Sonic Youth called Santa Doesn't Cop Out on Dope, and Michael Penn's Christmas Time. There you go.
There we are. And then for those who don't know, an 808 is a Roland drum machine, very famous Roland drum machine, which has been sampled and used in thousands and thousands of tracks, hip hop or otherwise.
It's really honestly kind of funny because it's definitely the Little Drum Boy, but with a drum machine. There's some humor there. I'm not going to lie. All right. What was your question for me, Tim?
So my question for you, I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What is your favorite Christmas song of all time?
Well, we know Christmas wrapping is the obvious choice. It will always be. But if I have to pick a second one, so I'm not always picking Christmas wrapping, The Waitresses, of course. My second favorite would be... Do you hear what I hear?
It's fabulous. Well, I would like to say that Waitress's Christmas Wrapping is probably my number one Christmas song. But much like Joy, if I couldn't pick that one, I would pick Slade's Merry Christmas, Everybody.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't even think of that. Slade is a band. I have to tell you, I went down a Slade rabbit hole one time, Tim. I'm sorry, this is supposed to be the end of the episode, everybody. So I had thought I made them up for the longest time. So that once they're like their biggest hit. What's the name of their biggest hit, Tim? Like the one song that comes to mind when you think of Slade.
Mama, We're All Crazy Now. Squeeze Me, Please Me.
Run Away is the one I'm thinking of.
Run Away. Yeah, there's many.
So Run Away, the music video, remember they're in front of that castle and everything? I spent 4 years telling everybody, what is that song? That's dead. Like black and white, dreaming black and white. So anyway, I went through a rabbit hole and no one knew what I was talking about. And I knew the song existed. And I kept telling people, I'm like, they're in front of a castle. Like that narrows it down. Like I'm really narrowing it down for everybody. I'm like, it's these guys and they're in front of a castle. No one, because I will say, I don't think they were as famous in America as they were in the UK, but they were famous. Like they were a pretty big band. But I swear to you, it took me 5 years to find that song again, Tim. I was so mad because I knew it existed. And when I would talk about it, people would think I was crazy because it's one of my favorite songs. And I'm like, no, it exists. And I went down a rabbit hole of Googling videos going, guys in front of castles, heavy rock music in front of castles, dude dancing in front of castles until I found it. That's my Slade story.
Well, I would also highly recommend you listen to Radio Wall of Sound by Slade. A very unconventional Slade song because Jim Lee, the bass player, sings the verses and Noddy sings the choruses, but it is an absolutely fantastic song. But I will close the episode with my classic Slade story. I may have told this before. So many years ago, I worked for Nationwide Building Society, which is like a credit union for our US listeners. And we used to go on Christmas parties and Christmas events like that. So we had it was one of these things where you went to a nightclub and lots of different organizations were all having a Christmas party and you just bought tickets. So on the way, we rented a minibus to get to Windsor because it was Blazers nightclub in Windsor. The minibus that collected us almost ran over us and killed somebody on the zebra crossing in front of Hounslow Central Tube Station. But anyhow, we got there late. And this was during a period of time when I was discovering alcohol, shall we say. So I was enjoying a number of beverage drinks, as it were. And I don't remember much of the evening, but I do remember somehow I ended up not only being in a conga line, I was at the head of the conga line.
Of course.
Slade were the entertainment for this thing. Now, Slade went out for many years after Noddy Holder left. Noddy Holder obviously being the iconic singer for Slade. But they went out with the same backing band, but with a different singer. And they called themselves Slade 2 because they weren't really Slade. They played the Slade songs.
That was the 90s into the early 2000s, right?
Yeah. But Dave Hill, the guitarist, was still playing with Slade. So I was doing this conga line in front of Slade when they were playing, and Dave Hill from Slade gave me a high five as I congaed past the stage.
I mean, that's literally all you need to live your best life, really, Tim.
Exactly.
You'll never top that moment.
Exactly. And I got very messy after that, and I don't remember about much what happened after that. But there we go. That's my Christmas Slade story.
All right. And with that, if this airs before Christmas, will this air before Christmas, Tim? You have the calendar.
Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you right now, Buzzsprout. Let's have a look.
You can tell Joy really keeps up with this so well. Tim does all the editing and the publishing, so I just sit here and say funny things.
This will air between Christmas and New Year, so people will have the Christmas spirit, and you will be enjoying this. In fact, I will tell you exactly when it will post. It will post on December the 28th.
Oh, that's perfect. Yay, it falls right there. So for all of our fans or I guess I should say listeners, fans, whatever you want to call yourself, we hope you have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate, and everybody else, Happy Holidays.
Absolutely. And we will see you soon. Bye-bye. See you later. Bye-bye.